Hello, and welcome to Model Aviation Live. I'm your host, Jay Smith, executive editor of Model Aviation Magazine. It's almost Halloween, so I decided I would dress for the occasion, and I asked to have a special guest on this show, given how close it is to Halloween. The guest that we have actually works on the magazine. I think they've worked at AMA for about 3 years. We'll confirm that in just a minute when we bring them on. But they are probably the biggest Halloween slash horror fan that works at AMA, so I thought it'd be a perfect show to talk to them a little bit about the magazine, a little bit about their flying journey, but we're also going to talk a little bit about their interest in Halloween and horror, and they have a lot of neat stories to tell. So I'm going to welcome Brandon Benfield to the show. He is a graphic designer that works on Model Aviation. Hi,
Hey there.
Brandon.
Come on, everybody.
So am I right? About 3 years at AMA?
Yep. Next week is my 3-year anniversary. I think it's somewhere in like November 3rd or something like that. So
Well, happy anniversary.
thank you. It's been an honor to work for the organization. It's the best job I've ever had, to be honest with you. I've worked for a lot of different companies, both in the corporate America world and in the mom and pop type of feel, and so I feel like this is kind of the best of both worlds. So yeah, I love working at AMA.
Awesome. So obviously, anybody that sees your video feed, sees that you have a lot of movies and figures and masks. And so, as I said, I think you probably got the biggest collection of anybody at AMA when it has to do with horror. So, and I know you're an autograph collector and you like going to shows. So. Let's touch base on a little bit of that background. So, what was your first autograph?
My first autograph I got back in 2012. I attended Motor City Comic Con up in Detroit, Michigan, Novi technically. And I hadn't really known how the convention world worked. I kind of thought you'd pay one price and you could bring all your stuff and get it signed. And I was a little bit disappointed when I got there, but my first autograph was from Dean Cain. I was a big Superman fan back as a kid, and I was so excited that he was in town that you were able to meet him and such. So I remember I brought all four of my box sets and my poster, my Lois and Clark poster, to get signed. And then when I realized it was $40 or $30 or something back then per signature, I was like, "Ooh, yeah, I mean, that might be a little bit out of my price range." So I ended up just having one thing signed, and I met Yvonne Craig that same day, Elena Huffman from both Supernatural and Smallville, and Sam Witwer from Smallville that day. So those were kind of my first autographs and that introduction to that world.
Well, the way you expected it to be is the way it used to be. I'll age myself here a little, but I started going to conventions in the late 80s and into the 90s, and you paid to get in, and everybody signed for free. I used to go to Volcon, which obviously is a Star Trek convention that was in St. Petersburg. I went to Volcon in Orlando. I came to Chicago twice for Visions, the Doctor Who convention, and everyone that came to any of those conventions sign for free. But obviously, that model changed. I think probably so that they could pay less to bring each guest, because before, they were paying the guest to be there and all their expenses and all that. So I think the model now where they make money selling their autographs frees up the convention to be able to invite more guests. Would you say, from your understanding now, that's kind of the reason why?
Yeah, and the way that the convention world just operates and as a whole, um, it very much is that way, because they have to pay things like flight and hotel and per diem. Having to pay them an appearance fee on top of that is just economically not possible, which is unfortunate for the consumer, us, who's going to the convention. But, for everyone who's passionate about it, they know that they'll pay the price of an autograph or a selfie or the combo, and it's definitely something that you're given a lot of advance notice for most of the time. Sometimes they'll have last minute guest editions that you don't know about, and you're like, shoot, I wanted to get that person, for my collection. But yeah, for the most part, you get plenty of time to kind of save and whatnot, and it's crazy how much the convention world has blown up. I mean, there's probably a good 6 to 8 conventions a weekend all throughout the world as far as
Well,
culture goes.
my first autograph was Ron Howard. and it was on the set of Cocoon because that was filmed in the St. Petersburg area. And at the time, before my dad opened his hobby shop, he worked at the St. Pete Times, and they were doing like a little story about the movie being filmed there. So he told my mom that it was being filmed and where it was being filmed before, like well, I can't say before the paper, but he told her the night before, and then the paper came out. And so she asked me if I wanted to miss school and go see a film being made. And I'm like, as soon as she said you wanted to miss school for a day, I said, yeah, before I even knew what I was agreeing to. And so she took me. And strangely, after we parked and walked up, Ron Howard walked up to us and he had a notebook in his hand. And my mom said she brought me to meet him. And he asked me if I wanted his autograph. And I said, yes. And so he took a page out of his notebook that he was using to write notes for the film Cocoon and gave me an autograph. And then he asked if I wanted a photo with him. And my mom said yes. And I didn't even know she had a camera. She had a camera in her purse and she took a picture of me with Ron Howard. So it was free. I didn't have to pay anything. And
Yeah,
it was really neat. That started it for me. But then, like I said, going to Volcons and the Doctor Who convention. I mean, I met Tom Baker, my favorite doctor, the most popular doctor of the classic series, in 1991 in Chicago, and free autograph. And then I won lunch with him. They had a raffle for charity, and I won lunch with him. So it's definitely different now. But you shared some photos with us of some of the people that that you've met. So let's share those, and you can share any information you want while we go through your photos.
sure. Yeah, I've met and worked with over 1,000 celebrities, whether that's volunteering at a convention or just meeting them in person, or on the side, I also do I book celebrities for some conventions as well. So in doing so, and even I've done artwork, freelance work for them if they need prints or artwork, anything like that. I'm kind of like your one-stop shop for your convention needs and such. But this photo was with Jonathan Breck. Now, Jonathan Breck was he played the Creeper in Jeepers Creepers, and that truck that's behind him is actually the screen use truck that you see in the Jeepers Creepers film franchise. So that's what was really special about that photo. Now, this here is with Robert England. As you'll know, he played the most famous for playing Freddy Krueger in the Nightmare on Elm Street series. Really cool story about him. It's kind of a dual story. I met him first. This photo was taken last year, but I met him 10 years ago for the first time. And I remember I was waiting in line, and he had to go. And he looked out into the crowd and he said, "Okay, I'm going to sign for one more person. I'm going to do it for free." And eeny, meeny, miny, I pick you. And he pointed to me. And so he signed my print for me, one that I had specially designed for him to print or for him to sign. And then he took the picture with me. And again, that was 10 years ago, really fun fit photo, but I wanted to get a newer one. And plus, I knew he was doing photos with the glove now. And so when I got this picture, as you can see, I had my PRS guitar shirt on. I'm a guitar player as well. Photo ops are supposed to be really quick, professional ones like this. And he stopped kind of the crowd. There was probably 100 people behind me. And he said, he told me a story about how he used to go and hang out with Wayne Newton in Las Vegas, and they would just shoot the breeze and talk about guitars, and he'd watch Wayne play and sing, and they were really good friends. So it was really cool to hear that story from him. Just he offered it up. I didn't have to ask him for it. He just told me. This is with the two, spoiler alert if you haven't seen Scream. Now, Scream was my very first horror film. That's what really got me into the genre when I was a kid. I was probably 10 years old when I watched this movie, but Skeet Ulrich on my left there, or on my right, your left, and then Matthew Lillard on your right, my left. They both were the killers in the original Scream film.
And Matthew, he was in the Scooby Doo movies, right? As
That's
Shaggy.
right. Yep, and Skeet Ulrich there was in my favorite television show of all time, Jericho. Highly recommend it to those, especially uh, those that are into model aviation that are also into military things. It's a show about post-apocalyptic uh, world where 24 nuclear bombs have gone off in the country and nobody knows why. And so they live in a small town outside of Denver called Jericho. And so it's the town trying to figure out, okay, how do we get back on the map? How do we survive? How do we find food? How do we get resources? And it's a really neat show. It's only 30 episodes, but it's worth a watch.
And Matthew is also a big Dungeons and Dragons player.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's been here to Gen Con before.
Uh huh.
in Indy. This is Bruce Campbell. Jay and I actually went to this event together. Jay and I both met him the same day. This is my photo with Bruce Campbell and my Necronomicon Book of the Dead. Real fun photo that we took there. So yeah.
And what did he star in for those that don't recognize him?
Evil Dead. He's also a good friend of Sam Raimi, so he's been in the Spider-Man films. Now, fun thing about that shirt actually I ordered off of TeePublic. I got that because uh, in the Ash vs Evil Dead series, he talks to Lionel Hawkins. He has him translate through the book of the Evil Dead book, the Necronomicon. There, Kelson's a great friend of mine. He was in the Power Ranger series, which I've also worked with a lot of those people. So that was the reason why I got that shirt, was to kind of honor my friend's character there. Now, this is a fun story. So, these are the actors, the actual actors that played the one on my right, your left. That's C.J. Graham. He played Jason Voorhees in the Friday the 13th Part Six. Jason Lives. That's the sixth film. Now, on my left, your right, that is Kane Hodder. Kane Hodder is probably the most recognized and well-known Jason Voorhees actor. He played Jason in Friday the 13th Part Seven, A New Blood. Part eight, Jason Takes Manhattan. Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday is the ninth film, and then Jason X. Um, so, funny story about this photo is when, as you can see, I'm kind of, if you can tell, I'm kind of, my shoulders are kind of perched up a little bit, and it's almost like I'm in shock a little bit. Now, I was able to get a smile out, but the reason why is because, and you can kind of see it, Kane's hand was on my neck, and what he did was, when he came up to the photo, he grabbed me by the neck so hard, and it actually really hurt. But at the same time, like, I was very shocked and surprised. But then again, I can walk away from it saying, "Hey, I was grabbed by the neck by the real Jason Voorhees." So I thought that was kind of a funny story to share. And then David Howard Thornton. He played the clown, the Miles County clown, in the Terrifier. Art the Clown is his name. This is all the rage right now in the horror community. Everybody loves Terrifier. It's just, I mean, he's getting merchandise now like he's Mickey Mouse. I mean, just, you can find him on everything: pins, plates, masks, everything. There's just, Spirit Halloween this year is full of Terrifier stuff. And this was another great photo I took. This was 2 years ago, at Lexington Scarefest. This was, they had like a big final girl reunion. So from left to right, that's Adrienne King. She was in Friday the 13th Part One, or the first one. Part Two was next to her. That's Amy Steele. Next to her is Part Four. That's Kimberly Beck from the final chapter. On my other side, that's Melanie Kinnaman from Friday the 13th Part Five, A New Beginning. Next to her was my late friend Laura Park Lincoln. She was the final girl in Part Seven, and then next to her is Jensen Daggett, Part Eight.
Good memory, remembering
Yeah,
all those names.
yeah,
So obviously, people are seeing your backdrop, and that's actually your studio, and you have a YouTube show with your wife called "The Couple That Slays Together." Tell me a little bit about that, and then we'll show your little intro to your show.
yeah. So my wife and I were trying to figure out ways how we could kind of connect even more as a couple, and she and I both have this love of horror movies. Now, my wife isn't really big into traveling nor going to the convention world. She did it for as long as she could, but she just likes to be home. She's a homebody and likes to be on the couch on the weekends and such, which I don't knock her for. So she's kind of my home base when I'm away working at those and or just enjoying them for fun. But we decided, we really wanted to do something together. And so we started this podcast called The Couple That Slays Together. She came up with the name. I kind of came up with the branding and the logo and our colors and everything. We have our like a purple and green color scheme going. But basically, what we do is we review horror movies. We kind of give like it's a whole show. So we're on YouTube and your podcast networks. But we talk about like we go through kind of a synopsis of the film. We kind of give our thoughts and points on things that we liked, disliked, whatever, didn't understand, could have seen more of, pacing, such. And then we get to the death count of the film, We give our favorite kill, like how creative, or if they're entertaining or even just scarring. And then we get to we do our favorite scenes of the films, and then we go through and we rank the movie. We rate the movie by um, letter grade, so like an A through F or E or however you want to say it, and then a scale of 1 to 10, so 10 being the best, one being the worst, and we go by like a point 0.5 ranking, and then we give it a star rating, so from 1 to 5 stars. But then the biggest thing is that we also give what's called the replay value. So we give like a ranking from will watch repeatedly, likely to watch again. We're neutral. We could maybe watch it again or not. Don't care. We probably won't watch it again, or we'll never watch that garbage again. And so basically, you can have a movie that isn't necessarily critically acclaimed or isn't great at all. It just it took trash at the box office, didn't do well, but you love the film so much that you can put it on while you're cleaning the house, or you need it to put on while you're working, and you just want, like, instead of music, like a movie playing, or you want something to relax to and maybe even fall asleep taking a nap, a comfort movie. So we like to give that, like, I attribute like movies like Batman and Robin, or like we just reviewed Halloween Resurrection. Halloween Resurrection was not a great film in the series, but it's one that's fun enough to where you can put on and just listen to in the background. You don't necessarily have to be doing anything important. So, that's where we rank things. And then we also interview celebrities. We've interviewed the original Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th part, or the first one. And then we just last night, actually, we interviewed Brad Laree from that Halloween Resurrection film, and that episode will be out next week on Halloween here in 2025. So, but then we also do product unboxing reviews and other minisodes on things, like I talk about my experiences at the convention. So it's a real fun channel that we have together that we do right here in the studio.
Well, let's show your intro, so people know what to look for if they want to watch. So, is green and purple your favorite colors, or did you just use those because they worked well together? Or
Yeah, I mean, I kind of they're not my favorite colors necessarily. I'm more of like, black's my favorite color, but like, which I know people argue that's not really a color, but it was more for branding purposes. Like, it just worked for me. We originally had like white and red, but I just was toying around with different logos, and yeah, just the light behind me, and then there's a green light over there. I was kind of toying around with lights, and I thought, hey, green and purple look pretty good together. Maybe I'll just do a full branding thing with that. So, um, but yeah, and even in that intro, it's funny because I've kind of developed relationships with different people out of different things. I try to put like the different people in there that I've gotten to know in the convention world. So like, I put my two friends from the Purge in there, Brittany Mirabile from the Purge election year, and then Joel Allen from the television series in the second season. Hannah Fearman's in there from VHS. So anybody, and CJ, like, that Jason Voorhees actor I was telling you about, like, I try to give like props to the people that have given me the time of day, and wanted to return that, and by kind of honoring them, plus some of our favorite things in there as well. So
perfect.
yep.
So, obviously, if you would like to check that out, you can just type in into YouTube the couple that slays together. You'll get their YouTube channel. Then
Mhm.
you can decide if you want to watch an unboxing or a review or an interview. So, yeah, that's really cool. Um, I also was going to share a video, so we'll start out with the video, and then I'll talk about my
My
introduction
interest
to horror.
or
Well, good afternoon, whatever you are, and welcome to the tenement castle of Dr. Paul Bearer.
If that entrance brings a smile to your face, you might be one of the lucky ones who grew up with Dr. Paul Bearer. But even if you've never heard of him, stick around. You're going to hear about how a ghoulish undertaker became TV's longest-running horror host, and why he means so much to fans decades later. It was his dedication that endeared Dr. Paul Bearer to his audience. Week after week, he'd introduce horrible old movies with a mix of corny puns, sight gags, and ghoulish charm that kept viewers coming back for more.
So, Dr. Paul Bearer was my entry into horror because he was in St. Petersburg, Florida, the host of Creature Feature, which would be like Sammy Terry or Elvira or any other host like that. But he ended up being the longest running host. He started in North Carolina in 1966 and he moved to St. Petersburg in 1973. And he was the host until his death in 1995. So, paying a little tribute to him. This year is 30 years since his passing, and my birthday was this past Saturday, and I actually got a birthday present that involves Dr. Paul Bearer. So if we can share that. So on the left is a magazine that he's on the cover of with other horror hosts, and on the right is original artwork that I was gifted for my birthday of Dr. Paul Bearer. And what's cool about that artwork is that was actually done by an artist who grew up watching Dr. Paul Bearer just like I did. So it wasn't just somebody who did it because they thought they could sell it. It was someone who knew the character. In my case, I was fortunate. My father was very involved in drag racing, and we used to go to what was called the Sunshine Speedway. And I think it was in 1978. Halloween fell on the night of the race, and Dr. Paul Bearer made a personal appearance and came to the racetrack, and I got to meet him, and I got a photo with him, and I got his autograph. And then at the very end, he drove his hearse. He made all of his appearances in a hearse, and he drove his hearse down the track right before he left. And for me, growing up watching him, I just really appreciated. That's where I saw the first Universal movies, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Frankenstein, those kind of films, as well as other ones that are maybe not as memorable. But he was also, had a lot of humor. He would say at the end, "I'll be lurking for you," was his close, and he would, make jokes. About things like we had a fish and chip shop back in the day in Florida called Arthur Treachers, and he had a bag that said Creature Treachers, and said he stopped for lunch before he did the show. So he made his own props. He's still remembered today after 30 years. There's a book about him that you can still buy today on Amazon. There is a card set that I'm showing right here, 37 cards about Dr. Paul Bearer, and the last card in the set is autographed. So I now have his autograph twice because I still have my autograph as a kid, and I've got the card set. And if you're interested in him at all, if you look on YouTube, after he passed, they did a like half an hour tribute to him on Channel 44 and showed a lot of his clips and talked about him. You can also see parts of his show. He also in the Tampa St. Pete area, they named October 30th Dr. Paul Bearer Day. And in 1993, they had an event at Busch Gardens, which was our big theme park in Tampa, for him. So he was a pretty big deal. And I like I said, I think he was my entryway into watching movies. I still love watching movies with Peter Cushing and Vincent Price and all those movies that you can find on Amazon and whatnot. So I thought it'd be neat to mention him. Like I said, sadly, he actually died of complications of open heart surgery. And interestingly, his surgery was on a Saturday, which I don't think is overly common, but maybe it was, an emergency. And sadly, he passed. And at that time, his show was on, and that was his last show that aired. So literally, his last show was also the day he died. In fact, also I'll mention because of his popularity that later another person became Dr. Paul Bearer and is still doing it to this day. And he calls himself Dr. Paul Bearer the second or Dr. Paul Bearer 2. So
Right.
if you look up Dr. Paul Bearer on YouTube, you might find some more modern videos with this gentleman. And he tries to replicate the voice and the laugh. And, it's nice that he's paying tribute to him. So that is kind of my introduction. As far as autographs, before we get into model airplanes, let's talk, Brandon, about autographs. So I think I have about 150 autographs total of all
All
things:
things,
music,
music.
um, fandom, horror, sci-fi. But I think you've got me eclipsed. What do you think you're at?
Well over 1,000. Because yeah, I mean, even in my books over there, I've got 11 books, I think, and then most of these masks have several signatures on them. I've got masks that aren't even up yet that have autographs on them, several. So yeah, I mean, I've never actually sat down and counted, but yeah, I mean, I scan all my stuff into my library as well, so I'd have to actually look at the number, but it's definitely over 1,000.
Do you have one specifically that means the most to you for whatever reason?
Yeah, actually, they're outside of the horror realm. I have a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles like full cast autograph. It's just of like the image of them from the '89 cover of like they're just poking their heads out and such of the sewer. I have most of the suit actors, the voice actors. I just have to have Corey Feldman. Basically, I just need to add Corey Feldman and Elias Koteas to it.
On my end, I think one of them would definitely be Tom Baker from Doctor Who, because I grew up. My uncle turned me on to Doctor Who in like '79, and I met him in '91 and had lunch with him, as I mentioned earlier. And during the lunch, I at the convention I bought an original piece of artwork of Tom Baker, and I took it to lunch, and he signed it, Tom Baker, Chicago, 1991. But another big one is my favorite. Um, Creature, universal monster is Frankenstein. And so I do have an autograph from the original Frankenstein actor from 1931. Do you know who his name is, Brandon?
From which
1931. Who played the original Frankenstein?
was that Boris Karloff?
Boris Karloff. Yeah. So I have an autograph from Boris Karloff. And I also wanted to share this, and Brandon knows about these. So these are from NECA. When I was a child, I dressed as Frankenstein, and that they were Ben Cooper costumes. So many people watching may have had Ben Cooper costumes, or maybe they bought them for their kids. And you could buy them at Kmart or any place like that. And they decided to come out with a line of Ben Cooper, kids dressed in the costume. So I had to get the Frankenstein one. I also want to show, in case you didn't see last month, I have a pilot figure that's called Frankie, and this is from Old School Model Works. So it's 3D printed. He does 31 different pilot figures. He has a jack o' lantern. They're not all like horror related. He has World War One pilots and a lot of other pilots as well. But he wanted to send me one, and I said, send me what he calls Frankie. So
Um,
yeah, I'm
yeah.
a big Frankenstein fan. Also a big fan of the original Night of the Living Dead from the '60s. What about you, Brandon? Is it Scream? What's your favorite?
It's got to be between Scream and Friday the 13th. I just love both of those franchises so much, um, for different reasons. But yeah, it's either Scream or Friday the 13th. But I do love Universal Monsters, and The Creature from the Black Lagoon is my favorite of the Universal Monsters. Actually, I had the privilege of about 5 or so years. Yeah, it was 5 years ago because it was right at the height of COVID. Rico Browning, who played so there was always two actors that played the creature. There was one that was on land, and then one who did all the underwater stunts. Well, Rico Browning lived to be about 94, 95 years old, and he was still doing conventions even during COVID. So I had the honor of spending time with he and his daughter, and I was able to drive him to the airport. Let me tell you something. That was probably the most nerve wracking thing because it was around 5 in the morning. It was a rainy morning, and I had to drive on I-465 and 70. Yeah, I'm white knuckling on my steering wheel driving this man because it's like if I get into a car accident and kill this man, this is like 4 generations of fandom I'd be upsetting. So it was definitely intimidating, but he was a very sweet man. Couldn't hear very well, but his daughter was very nice. And so yeah, he, like I said, he was the underwater creature and the creature from the Black Lagoon. And just, yeah, that's one of the reasons why he's my favorite.
Yeah, I have his autograph as well, and he was discovered in Florida, and they just wanted him to do some. They wanted to do some test filming with him to see if the location would work, and he could hold his breath for 2 minutes. And so they had a diver underwater, and he would have the costume on and do some scenes, and then he'd either go to the surface or he'd go down to where the diver was. But he did such a good job that they hired him to do all the in water scenes. And so yeah, he was a really incredible, and lived way longer than any other Universal monster, because Karloff died in '69, and Bela Lugosi died before that, and Lon Chaney Jr. died before that. So
Yep.
he outlived all of them by a long margin.
Yep. And another fun fact about him is he went on to create the television series Flipper.
That's right, he
Yep.
did.
Yep.
Absolutely. So another favorite. I think that was in the '70s, wasn't it?
I believe so.
'70s, early '80s. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, definitely appreciate you sharing a little bit about your collection, and great backdrop. Thought it'd be neat at Halloween, but it is called Model Aviation Live, so we do got to talk obviously about model airplanes, and I want to talk about your journey because you didn't fly model airplanes before you came to AMA, and you do now, and you went through training at AMA, and you have soloed, and you have your own airplane. You did have a little mishap, so kind of tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, um, thank you, Jay, for that. So I basically, like Jay said, I've been designing for the magazine now for about 3 years, almost. I really leaned heavy into AMA and the hobby this year. Like I just wrote my first feature that'll actually be out in the December issue. I wrote a feature about an actor coming to visit us here at AMA, but then also, yeah, they were offering flying lessons to some of the staff who have never flown before, and they were letting us get solo certified. So I took it upon myself not only to learn, but I bought my own plane, got my own Aero Scout here. Now, the funny thing about this is, I got certified, and then I got really confident, so a little bit too confident. So, I had remembered everything that education director Kyle Jarris had taught me, and was just kind of using those skills, and just even just sitting on the couch messing around with my transmitter. I was like, okay, I know I got to hold the throttle this way in order for it to, do whatever I need to do with this and that, and kind of just for muscle memory, just while watching TV. And then took it into practice when I flew my own plane for the first time after I got certified. So, but again, I got a little too cocky, and I tried to do a barrel roll. Now, I went up, and I was trying to kick the throttle up to try to speed up, but I didn't do it fast. Excuse me, I didn't do it fast enough, and I ended up crashing it. And I remember Chris was in front of me, our friend Chris, and one of our maintenance guys. And I just remember I was like, well, he's going to get up to it before I do. Maybe it'll be okay. And then I see him start picking up one piece, and then another piece, and then another piece, and I was like, ah, oh, dang. So yeah, it had split in half, but I went through the kind of modeler's depression, maybe, if that's what it's a good thing to call it, because I was like, wow, I just spent, whatever on this plane, and now it's broken in half. That was a lot of not fun. And I don't, but everybody kept telling me, oh, that's easy to fix. That's easy to fix, this and that. And so here I am today. I learned how to fix it. So, like there's uh, crack there. It's pretty apparent over on this side. You can see under the wing, there's a big break there, and the front part of it had come off. But yeah, with some glue and a couple different kinds of glue and foam tack, and some toothpicks and everything, I was able to put it back together. And I haven't flown it yet because it got cold right after that had happened, after I repaired it. But I'm really excited to get back out there and start flying in the spring.
I certainly remember we had a conversation because you were obviously down, and that happens obviously when people do lose an aircraft, but I think it's harder early in their hobby experience. And you had spent money and invested transmitter and charger and battery and plane, and so you went through some emotions, and that's the thing sometimes, that if somebody's really new into the hobby, they may question, is this right for me? And but as I said to you, I think the best thing to do is just put it away for the airplane away for a few days or a week, and then come back to it and look at it with a fresh set of eyes and determine whether or not you can fix it. Thankfully, if you chose not to fix it, like for that airplane, you can buy individual parts. You can buy the fuselage, you can buy the wing. But I find, for me personally, that's always best to do, is put it away for a few days and then come back to it once you're past the shock or the disappointment of what happened. And with it being a foam aircraft, it's even easier to fix, generally speaking, because balsa,
Also,
you have to cut the covering away and you have to reglue wood and maybe make wood parts. So I always find foam to be typically easier to repair. And I'm assuming once you got it fixed, and I mean, I know it doesn't look, it's like a new car, right? When you get a new car, you park way out in the parking lot because you don't want a door ding. And then when you get that first door ding, then you're like, well, I'm not as worried about it anymore. But I'm guessing once you had it all repaired, it's not pristine, but it made you feel better because you can still enjoy it. And now, as some people refer to, you can fly it like you stole it. That's what people say. Once you've had a mishap like that and you fixed it, then fly it like you stole it. So is that how you feel?
yeah, obviously, I want to get better with, doing some tricks and everything. And, I also watched a little bit of the Nats this year, just kind of going out and talking with some of the members. And, uh, you know, I, I don't know how far I'll go in the hobby. I'm not saying I wouldn't go very far, but you just don't know. Just all depends on schedule and availability, and what I have the ability to do. But yeah, I am definitely going to be flying again in the spring, and would love to be able to try RC combat.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a question that I've never asked you ever at work or whatnot. Does your wife have any interest in flying? Do you think you could get her involved?
No, unfortunately, I've tried to get her involved, but it's not that she's against it. It's just um, I've tried to teach her how to drive a stick shift, and I that didn't go over very well. And so I don't. I think she would probably get too scared of it, being out there. So with a plane.
Right. Well, and we mentioned at the very beginning that obviously you've worked at AMA a week shy of 3 years, and you're a graphic designer. Can you talk a little bit about what you do, what that entails, what you do at AMA? Because I mean, I don't think a lot of people understand all the working parts of putting the magazine together, but you just don't work on the magazine. You also help out all the other departments when they need it with marketing materials or banners or so. Could you kind of walk us through just a little bit of what your job responsibilities look like and how you contribute to AMA?
Yeah, of course. So, with the magazine itself, we obviously have to go through like several checks and changes and such. We go through 4 rounds of revisions. We take in the copy. We lay everything out. We have to change over the photos to a certain, like print mode or whatever. So that's part of getting the magazine going, but also working on art projects for like the foundation. Like we do a lot of work for them. Um, just being able to go through and anything house ads, if anything's got anything going on in the office with, brochures, anything like that, they can call on us and, we'll get that done. So, um, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
And what drew you to, I mean, starting off, what drew you to graphic design, or how did you get involved with graphic design?
That's actually a really funny story. So I went I was dead set that I was going to be a music minister when I was in high school. That was like my path. I felt like I was meant to do that or whatnot. But so I even remember when they were coming around and saying, "Hey, you're going into your junior year next year of high school. There's a way, you guys can you have the option of going to like a vocational school, like you can spend half your day and go what they called the tech center at the time, and now it's the career center. But so we go to the tech center. You could go either in the morning or afternoon for half your day. And so I'm like, well, I already know what I want to do with my life, but I guess I'll go just to get out of school for an afternoon. And so you get to pick 2 classes to check out, and I think the 2 I picked were electronics, I think was the first one, and then graphic design. Well, so for the graphic design class, they had like you can make t-shirts. Like that was like the big selling point was, oh, you can make, they show you how to do screen printing, like this kind of thing. and you can design your own work and then put them on shirts. And I was like, wow, that's really fun. And so they were also saying that with when you graduate high school, you take college courses, and you could get up to 20 credits, which was a third of your degree that you'd be getting right out of high school. So I was like, well, I guess I'll do that as a fallback. And so for the longest time, graphic design was like a fallback. Like I wanted to do that, just in case. And I ended up having just such a passion for it that I was able to do that. And so where I'm from Battle Creek, Michigan. It's a big manufacturing town. Battle Creek, they invented cereal back in the early Seventh Day Adventist days when that movement was just starting. And so, my town has a lot of cereal factories and car parts. There's a lot of factories for Ford and Chevy and everything there too. There wasn't a lot of job opportunities for graphic designers, so that's why I ended up moving to Indianapolis in 2012. I took a leap of faith. A friend of mine, they had a temporary opening at where I worked when I first moved here, and he was looking for a roommate. So I was like, wow, this is a really good chance for me to start over. And so I came to Indy in July of 2012, and I met my wife November 2012. So it worked out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And obviously, you're still close enough that you can go back and visit friends or family in Michigan.
Yep. About 3 hour drive.
Have you got any of your friends into flying model airplanes?
Um, no, but like some friends of mine have revealed that they are. Like it was just something I was never into. So, but like once I started getting into it, actually my best friend, Mike Davis, he was like, "Hey, I fly planes." And when I got that, when I originally had that DX6i transmitter that I'd showed you, he was like, "Oh, I've got one of those." Like he had the same one. So, yeah, it's been cool to be able to like talk to my best friend about it now that I'm into it and he's been into it. It's something we can bond even more over. So,
Yeah. Well, and I think it's okay to talk a little bit about the article that you wrote, give people a little preview. So, your friend that came to AMA that is an actor is John Toohey. So, share a little bit about that. Give a little preview of what took place and what people get to read about.
yeah. So, a short story is basically with doing these conventions like Power Rangers, they moved production from LA to New Zealand back in season 11. They wrapped the entire series, ended at season 30 back in 2023. So, when the promoter was trying to bring over people from New Zealand, he was like, "Hey, can you help me get some of these guys?" And I said, "Yeah." So, we got him up here. John was one of them. He was in the series in season 13 and 14. He and I just really became friends. Like he wasn't the type of guy that would only send an email or only send a text. No, he likes to video chat. And so we video chatted, just getting to know each other about 2 or 3 times a week. That's just how close we got. And so when he wrapped, so he's going to be, you'll see him as the chief, actually Chief Tui in the 2026 live action adaptation of Moana. He's playing Moana's father. He's third build on the list next to her and Dwayne Johnson's character. But so when they wrapped filming in Atlanta, he went to New York City to see a friend of his there, and then came over to Indianapolis to do some signings and hang out with me for a week. And so he came to AMA, and we did a flying lesson with him. Again, Kyle and Jay, you both helped him, and you interviewed him for our click on segment, and we were just able to get a feature out of him. So real nice guy. I'm excited for our readers and our listeners and viewers here to watch or sorry, to read and watch his interview with you on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun meeting him and interviewing him. And for those that may not be familiar with his name, you said Power Rangers. Could you talk a little bit about some of the other things he's done?
Yes, so he played Bulg, the orc leader in The Hobbit, The Battle of Five Armies. If you've ever seen Fast and the Furious films, Fast and the Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw. He played one of Dwayne Johnson's brothers in that film franchise. He was Corso in Solo, a Star Wars story. And most recently, if your kids or even if you guys play Overwatch, he plays the voice of Malga in that video game series.
He was also in Battleship.
Yep, he played the captain of the ship on that one.
Yeah, because he kind of relayed some of the things he did to me on filming that. And, there was some aviation involved with that. And then it was neat for him to try out the modeling side of things. He really seemed to enjoy it, I would say. And he brought his son too. And so that was
Yep,
great.
yep.
So I that's going to be an issue that everybody gets here real soon. And how did you find the process of writing an article? Did you enjoy that? Did you find it hard?
I did. No, it wasn't hard. Writing for me has always been, it's been kind of a joy of mine, just a secret little thing that I've enjoyed. I was always really good in English, so I never really had much of a problem. And it was really great to hear that both you and our other editor, Jenny, said that you guys didn't have to change much at all. So that was really assuring to feel that I still got it, if you will.
Well, I think another thing we should touch on real quick that you touched on briefly, just for people watching to get to know you, is you did mention that you like to play guitar. So tell us a little bit about that and who are your influences, and give us that story.
Yeah, so I started playing guitar when I was maybe 13 or 14. I remember my mom took me to just the guitar shop, Caladine's in town. It's not there anymore, but took me to Caladine's and was like, "Hey, you want to try guitar lessons or whatnot?" And so I remember we just grabbed a guitar off the shelf. I really liked it, and she's like, "All right, we're gonna get you a guitar and get you playing." So learned my first basic chords there, played some in church, but then as life got kind of older, as I got older in my 20s, I kind of put it down for a little bit, and then got really heavy into it about 5 years ago during COVID, and just continue to play. So I'd say my two biggest influences are Mark Tremonti from the bands Creed and Alter Bridge, and Carlos Santana. I love Santana's work. I feel like I learn a lot of his solos just because he's easy to kind of play those like two or whatnot. So I'd say those are my big heavy influences.
And you picked two PRS artists,
I did, and I have their
and
PRS guitars.
yeah, and you wear a PRS shirt a lot to the conventions. Why do you choose to wear the PRS shirt? Just to show that you like music, or you're into guitars, or what makes that the shirt you like to wear to conventions?
It's honestly like a really cool, like it's a good conversation starter, because it's kind of like it gives them to talk about something like other than what they're known for. Like, I had Robert England tell me that story about with Wayne Newton, and jamming with him. Jason Patrick from Terrifier 3 and the Lost Boys and several other things, was showing me videos of his son playing guitar. Like it just kind of gets the conversation started if like they want to talk about something else other than their horror movies or whatever Power Ranger show they were in or something. It's just it's cool because they can look at it and say, "Hey, you play PRS? Well, I do this or whatever," and so that's a fun thing to talk about.
And for the non-guitar audience, PRS stands for Paul Reed Smith, who is the person that started the company hand building guitars. And obviously now it's a much larger company, and they have guitars that are made in the US, and they have guitars that are made outside the US, at a lower price point, if you will, called SE guitars, but they're great guitars, right?
Yeah, and the SE model, that's still upwards of about $900 to $950, which is like your mid-grade guitar. So it's yeah, I mean, they'll make $3 or $4,000 style guitars, but then they'll make an SE version that's around that 900 price range.
I actually met Paul Reed Smith at the Crossroads Festival, the last one that they had that was in Dallas. And interestingly, again, if you don't know about guitar, you wouldn't know who he was. And he was just walking around in the crowd. And I said, "That's Paul Reed Smith." And I went over and talked to him and told him I had a couple of PRS guitars, and got a picture with him. And then as soon as he walked away, a person came up to me and goes, "Who is that? Is he a musician?" And I said, "It's Paul Reed Smith. He owns PRS guitars." So super nice guy, from the time that I spent with him. And I mean, obviously, he's incredibly knowledgeable about guitars. So, what amp do you play through? Do you have a practice amp?
I just do a little. I used to have a double stack, but now it's like one of those little Spark Go ones that you can put on your belt buckle.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and then you control it with your phone.
yeah.
Yep, I use that.
I have a Spark. It's the one that's the size of a shoebox,
Okay.
roughly, and you can use your iPad or your phone to change the sounds, so you can make it sound like whatever you want. I I forget what they call it. It was the first Spark. I actually it was like crowd sourced, and I had to pay and wait to get it. But yeah, those are great
Yeah.
amps. Well, is there any other? So obviously you like horror, you like autographs, you like guitar, you like model aviation. Are there any other hobbies that you want to mention that you partake in?
Along with like the horror stuff, as obviously you can see, I have like like a library of DVDs. I'm one of those weirdos that still likes to collect physical media, even though I still watch things streaming on apps. I just like the feeling of owning something. You know what I mean? So it's
Right.
to kind of have that in my like library of things. So just to be able to like, and a lot of times we'll put the DVD case right here when we're like reviewing the movie or like talking to a guest from that film. So. But other than that, no, those are pretty much my hobbies. I produce our show, so obviously video editing is fun for me as well. That's another thing that I do. So, yeah.
Well, I think we've kind of covered a little bit of everything. Is there anything else that you want to share that I haven't asked you or we haven't talked about?
Um, I've got my other podcast that I do called Let's Be Real though with Brandon J. Benfield. It's basically it's not horror related, although I do talk about some horror things on there, but mainly that's just my own show. And I'll it's kind of more of a red and blue colored brand, if you will. So I can change the colors of the lights back here. But yeah, basically like so if you guys are interested in seeing more with John Toohey, I had him over to the house and we did a 2 hour long interview talking more about life and everything and such. So that's pretty much what that show's about. It's just anything life related, outside of fandom and whatnot. But still kind of give maybe like my thoughts on other films that like that I've maybe watched that aren't horror and such. So there's that, and yeah, check out my article in this month's magazine for December.
So, since you're a huge horror fan and you see, you go and see new movies in the theater and you watch stuff as soon as it comes to streaming. If you had, if somebody watching this wants to check out a movie that's come out in 2025, what horror movie would you recommend?
Okay, so I've got to give three.
Okay.
So Sinners, number one, you've got to see Sinners. That's the Ryan Coogler, Michael B. Jordan story. That one is like a lot of people were like comparing it to From Dusk Till Dawn. I would say that's like a light-ish horror movie. Like there's vampires and such, but like that happens later in the movie. It's just got heart. I don't know, like that movie's just really good. Weapons is another one that's awesome. That's the Josh Brolin, and I don't remember the girl's name. She's Silver Surfer in Fantastic Four this year. But that one is phenomenal. It's like from every vantage point of every character, like they kind of give their side of the story, and it's got a really good story. But um, the sequel that I recommend for the year, if you have seen the original Black Phone that came out in 2022, Black Phone 2 was amazing. We saw it in theater last Thursday, and I just can't stop raving about it. It's so good. So those are the three films that I recommend if you're looking for something good to watch for spooky season. If you're a horror light person, this isn't a new one for this year, but I've recommended movies like well, Drop was new. Drop was an all right movie. That one's like a thriller. That's about the girl who goes on the first date and she keeps getting these messages saying that she has to kill her date. And then one for that came out from a couple years ago. I recommend to everybody. It's called Fanatic. It's John Travolta and Devon Sawa. John Travolta, I feel like it's some of his best work. He plays like an autistic fanboy, basically, of this author, and he kind of takes things to the limits. And as far as stalking goes, and so it's again some of his best work. I cannot recommend it enough. And it's light to where if you're not really into gore and all that stuff, that one, those two, Drop and Fanatic, are kind of like light on the horror, if you will, but still good for spooky season.
I've seen Drop, and that was I think a new take on it's not anything I'd seen before.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's a great. And I've also seen Sinners, and that was enjoyable as well.
yeah,
Still need to see Weapons, but
it's so good.
yeah, so it's on my list. Well, I appreciate everything that you do for the magazine, and I appreciate you coming on and talking about it. And like I said, it just seemed to make sense to talk a little bit about Halloween. And in fact, we just had an event at AMA this past Saturday called Spooky Skies, and 430 people came out from the local community, which is great.
Yeah,
Um, I unfortunately wasn't there because Saturday was my birthday and I had previous plans, but it sounds like it was a great success. We always like sharing air modeling with the community. So, but yeah, look forward to Brandon's article, and definitely appreciate, like I said, what you do. Also, want to mention that our show next month in November will be obviously the third Friday. That would be the 21st of November. And I hope everyone who participates in Halloween has a nice, safe, happy Halloween, and look forward to seeing everybody again on November 21st. So we'll see you then. Thanks.
Happy Halloween, everybody.